The courtroom was buzzing with anticipation as the cameras rolled for another episode of Judge Judy. Today's case was unusual, not a typical civil dispute, but a televised debate on legal ethics, featuring Congresswoman and attorney Jasmine Crockett as a guest. Judy, known for her blunt style, wore a smirk as she reviewed her notes. Jasmine, dressed professionally and calm under the studio lights, greeted her politely. From the start, Judy seemed determined to test Jasmine's poise, cutting her off mid-sentence and challenging her legal background in front of the live audience. Judy's tone was sharp, bordering on dismissive, and her questions increasingly pointed. "Miss Crockett, are you a politician first or a lawyer first? Because your answers sound like neither." The crowd gasped. Jasmine's smile didn't fade. "Let's talk about the facts, Judge," she responded. Her voice steady but firm. As the segment continued, Judge Judy pressed hard. She brought up Jasmine's voting record, her courtroom experience, even mocked her use of legal jargon. "You throw around big words, but do you even know what they mean?" Judy jabbed, expecting an emotional reaction. Instead, Jasmine calmly leaned forward. "I not only know what they mean, Judge lived them. I've defended clients who didn't have a voice. I've taken pro bono cases no one else wanted." The audience, previously leaning toward Judge Judy's theatrical dominance, began to shift. Jasmine referenced precedent, quoted case law effortlessly, and calmly dismantled every accusation with a commanding presence. Judy's smile faded slightly. This wasn't the rookie she expected to school on national TV. During a mock legal scenario, Judy presented to trap Jasmine. The tide turned fully. "Let's see if you can think on your feet," Judy said, launching into a hypothetical involving contract law. Without hesitation, Jasmine not only responded with the correct legal analysis, but added a precedent from a real Supreme Court case to back her answer. "That's Jefferson v. Granger, 2011, D.C. Circuit," Jasmine concluded. The room went quiet. Even the crew behind the cameras froze. Judge Judy blinked, visibly surprised. For the first time in the episode, she was speechless. "That is correct," Judy admitted slowly. Jasmine smiled politely, her hands folded on the desk. After a brief commercial break, the energy in the room was different. Judge Judy's tone softened. Her usual sarcasm replaced with measured curiosity. "You've got bite, Miss Crockett," she said, adjusting her robe. "You don't get that in law school. You earn it in the trenches." Jasmine nodded. "That's where I come from, Judge. The trenches." Judy even cracked a respectful smile. "I may not agree with everything you say, but I can't argue your brilliance." The episode ended not with a confrontation, but with a rare moment of mutual respect between two formidable women. The audience erupted in applause, not for a winner, but for a lawyer who refused to be underestimated. Backstage, the producers buzzed about the unexpected turn. Social media lit up within minutes. Clips going viral. Judge Judy meets her match trended worldwide. Interviews were requested, fan edits flooded, TikTok, and even law students began citing Jasmine's performance as a masterclass in composure. In an unplanned post-show interview, Judge Judy said, "I tried to rattle her, I admit it. But you can't shake steel, Jasmine." Meanwhile, kept it humble. "It's not about beating anyone," she said into the camera. "It's about showing up prepared, no matter who's in the room." Her words echoed not just through the studio, but through a generation watching at home. Judge Judy adjusted the sleeve of her robe and leaned back in her chair, clearly preparing to escalate the intensity. The air in the studio was charged now, with the audience shifting in their seats. Sensing something different, this wasn't the typical scolding of a small claims plaintiff. This was intellectual combat. Judy narrowed her eyes and raised a brow. "Ms. Crockett, you speak well, but I've heard enough politicians with silver tongues and zero substance. Let's put that fancy rhetoric of yours to the test. You claim to have defended indigent clients. Good. Let's talk specifics. What's the most complex case you've ever handled, and don't give me vague talking points." Jasmine didn't even hesitate. She spoke with precision and control. "State of Texas versus L. Morgan. My client was a 20-year-old black man accused of assaulting a police officer. The evidence was thin, the arrest report was inconsistent, and body cam footage was conveniently missing. They wanted to bury him with a 20-year sentence. I pushed back, hard. I filed a Brady motion, demanded the department release internal memos, and eventually proved that the officer in question had a history of excessive force. My client walked out free. Judy raised her eyebrows, but didn't offer praise. Impressive. If true. But in my courtroom, we verify. So what's a Brady motion, Congresswoman? Enlighten this audience? Her tone was almost mocking, a quiz show host laying a trap. Jasmine's answer came quick, with zero uncertainty. Brady v. Maryland, 1963. The Supreme Court ruled that the prosecution must disclose any exculpatory evidence to the defense. A Brady motion is a formal request for that material. If the state withholds it, they violate the defendant's right to due process. It's basic criminal defense 101. The audience clapped lightly, some even nodding in approval. Judge Judy's expression flickered only for a second, but enough for the camera to catch it. Jasmine wasn't stumbling. She wasn't deflecting. She was teaching. Still, Judy pressed on. Fine. Let's see how well you understand constitutional law. You've criticized certain laws as unconstitutional on the House floor. Let's test that. Define the standard the Supreme Court uses when evaluating equal protection cases without blinking. As Jasmine answered, that depends on the classification. For suspect classifications, like race, the court uses strict scrutiny. The law must serve a compelling governmental interest and be narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. For gender, it's intermediate scrutiny. For others, rational basis. I've made those arguments in court, not just on the floor. The audience broke into a louder applause this time, some even cheering. Judge Judy's smirk faltered. But Judy wasn't done yet. Do you know why most laws survive rational basis review? Jasmine leaned in, voice calm but sharp. Because the burden is on the challenger. And as long as the law is reasonably related to a legitimate state interest, it passes. But just because something survives rational basis doesn't mean it's just. That's why I ran for office. The courtroom gives you a shield, but Congress gives you a sword. For the first time, a flicker of respect crossed Judy's face, barely perceptible. She masked it with sarcasm. Big words. Big ideas. Still sounds like a campaign speech. Jasmine smiled and held her ground. You asked legal questions, and I gave legal answers. If the truth sounds too good to be true, maybe that's because we've forgotten what competence looks like. A deep silence followed, the kind that swells not with tension, but with realization. Cameras silently captured Judy's face as she sat back and crossed her arms not in dismissal. But in contemplation, she had underestimated this woman, and the audience knew it. Even the production crew behind the cameras seemed to pause, as if the whole room had shifted from spectacle to something genuinely profound. What was supposed to be a public dressing down was rapidly becoming a showcase of legal intelligence. Delivered not with arrogance, but with unshakable clarity. Judge Judy shifted in her seat, visibly taken aback but determined to regain control. She cleared her throat and presented a mock legal scenario intended to be a gotcha moment. Let's say a landlord enters a tenant's apartment without notice and removes their property, claiming non-payment of rent. What's the remedy? Jasmine didn't hesitate. That's a violation of the covenant of quiet enjoyment and possibly constructive eviction. The tenant could sue for damages, and the landlord may face penalties depending on the jurisdiction. Judy raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? Aspen nodded, calm and unwavering. Texas Property Code. It's Chapter 9, 2. It's illegal for a landlord to remove doors, lock out tenants, or take property without court order. Due process matters even for renters. The audience broke into spontaneous applause. Judge Judy leaned back, lips tight. She was beginning to realize this wasn't a battle she was going to win by humiliation. After the applause faded, Judge Judy's tone noticeably shifted. She was no longer condescending, she was curious. You've got a sharp mind, Ms. Crockett, I'll give you that. But tell me, do you think being this smart in the courtroom always translates to politics? Jasmine offered a small smile. Sometimes it doesn't, but it should. Policy without legal understanding leads to chaos. Laws are made in Congress, but too often by people who've never seen their impact firsthand. Judy nodded slowly, as if something was clicking. Not just talking, you've lived it, Jasmine replied. Exactly. I didn't come here to spy. Came to speak truth. Judy sat back in silence for once without a retort. The audience watched, aware they had witnessed something rare. Mutual respect forming live on camera between two powerful women from different worlds finding common ground through law, grit, and purpose. Asterix backstage, producers buzzed with excitement. Social media lit up, praising Jasmine's poise and brilliance. Judge Judy meets her match trended instantly. In a rare post-show comment, Judy said, "I tried to test her, she passed." Jasmine, ever composed, told reporters, "I don't need to be the loudest to be heard. I just need to be prepared." The moment became more than TVIT, became a statement. Never underestimate a woman who knows both the law and her worth.